right now, we welcome to the show our good friend, the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee. He is Jonathan Skrmetti, and he joins us to talk about some of the things we see going on around the country and what law enforcement is ready for in the state of Tennessee and what's allowable and what is not allowable in the state of Tennessee. Attorney General, thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure talking with you. I hope you're well.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks. Great to be back.
Well, it's certainly good to have you back. I thought of you as I was watching some of this going down over the weekend in California, and a few pop-up little places around the country where folks seem to start out, at least some of them seem to start out doing protest, and then these things kind of spill over into the streets. And it occurred to me that, for most of us, we kind of understand the difference between a peaceful protest that's allowable per the Constitution of the United States and something that turns into what is essentially a riot. But maybe it's good to have the AG of the state on to remind us of what's allowable, what's not allowable, and how law enforcement is ready to respond in the unlikely, at least I hope, unlikely case that some of this comes to our state.
Yeah, I mean, this is America. People are allowed to disagree. They're allowed to voice their opinions. They're allowed to peacefully protest. All that's constitutionally protected. But what we see in California, in the last couple of days is violent assaults on federal law enforcement officials, violent assaults on federal property. There were arson attempts, firebombing at a federal facility, cars on fire. This is not acceptable. And the situation in California is particularly troubling because at least previously the mayor was saying, LA would not stand for ICE enforcing federal law. Well, federal law enforcement agencies are allowed to enforce federal law. If you don't like how they're doing it, there's a court system, but you can't just decide you're going to stop them from doing their job. We have a dual sovereignty system where the states have a lot of authority, but the federal government also has authority. And when ICE is out conducting its operations, if you disagree with that, try to win an election, protest, but you can't get out and stop them. You can't attack their facility. And if the state and local governments aren't going to protect federal law enforcement, the Insurrection Act is out there. And I'm not an expert in it, but I've read it. And there are certainly pretty straightforward arguments that the president does have the authority to invoke it. Under circumstances where federal agents are under serious threat.
Well, and, one of the reasons that I wanted to speak with you, Attorney General, is that, obviously in your position, you're kind of known as the chief LEO in the state, that you're the guy that we go to regarding what the law says and what it doesn't say, and you're the tip of the spear in terms of all of those law enforcement agencies that fall, in a variety of different categories and a variety of different ways throughout the state of Tennessee. So how would you advise people regarding what our law enforcement is prepared to do should it be necessary? I feel like we're going to have a very black and white approach to what is permissible and what is impermissible in our state, unlike maybe some of the, shall we say, bluer states around the country.
Well, by and large, that is accurate. The interesting thing about Tennessee is we don't really have state-level prosecution. A lot of states, the AG can step in and for either matters of statewide interest or matters that transcend jurisdictions, there's a prosecutorial element where the AG can go after people for committing crimes. Here, it's all DA by DA. So the state law enforcement entities, I think, have a pretty straightforward approach to all this stuff. But when you start to get down to localities, the attitudes, I think every DA is going to take violent crime very seriously. But I also think, there may be differences depending on priorities that a different DA has. But the important thing to remember is we also have the federal prosecutors. And when we're talking about federal immigration activity, certainly Tennessee has expressed very clearly its support of enforcing immigration laws. But ultimately, these are federal laws. And the U.S. Attorney's Office is incredibly powerful. They have very serious crimes that they can bring to bear to charge people with that carry lengthy sentences. So I think you'll see a lot of state law enforcement supporting federal law enforcement in a way that maybe California has equivocated on, or at least did. I can't quite tell where they're at now. It seems like somebody got the memo and California is starting to take this stuff more seriously from the latest reports I've seen. But, in Tennessee, you're going to see state law enforcement supporting federal law enforcement. You already see that with the Highway Patrol coordinating with ICE. But if people interfere with that, if people start especially threatening or assaulting any federal agents out there or putting their lives at risk, you're going to see very severe consequences.
It occurs to me, and we're speaking with Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti on our Murphy Show hotline, and we appreciate the AG giving us a little bit of his time this afternoon. I'm just interested, your thoughts on that coordination. I mean, obviously we've heard from the mayor of Nashville, and once again, I suppose that there are certain limits on what your speech will allow you to say, depending on exactly what you're saying. Those limits are very narrow, so he's within his right to offer his opinion on what's happening, as are you. And I'm curious. I mean, I feel so good that we have a Tennessee Highway Patrol that is concerned about the citizens of this state, those that want to be free of criminal activity in their neighborhoods, that they would coordinate with ICE, recognizing the necessity of getting some of the illegal alien criminal lawbreakers off our streets as well. What are your thoughts on it, Attorney General?
So, the law says that you don't have to, if you're a local or state official, you don't have to do what the federal government wants, but you can't get in the way. And so you see the state level law enforcement working very closely with ICE. We've known for years that there are laws about immigration, but they went completely unenforced. Under the Biden administration, we sued repeatedly trying to get the administration to recognize that these laws were out there, trying to avoid all these really wild ideas they had about ignoring the law in creative and expansive ways. And, the message from the courts was generally the president can enforce the immigration laws the way the president wants to enforce the immigration laws. We were pretty frustrated by that at the time. Mm-hmm. But if that's what the law is, we've got a president now who got elected saying, I am going to enforce these immigration laws, and he's following through on that promise. People knew what was coming, and it is illegal to be here illegally. Now, I think the violent criminals absolutely need to be the priority. We have dangerous people. We've seen Tren de Arago. We've seen MS-13 activity in the state. But, we have laws. We are a society of laws. The rule of law means it doesn't matter if you like a given law or not. They have to be enforced consistently. And, you can't just pretend that a law that was duly enacted doesn't exist. It's going to catch up with you. What we're seeing now is the fruit of years and years of trying to pretend the law said something different than it says.
Attorney General, you obviously have so many different things going on. I think there is U.S. versus Skrmetti been decided yet? Forgive me for not knowing where we are in the process, but I hope you will know. Where are we in that process, and what update can you give us on that case?
So we expect the opinion in that will be out sometime in the next few weeks. The Supreme Court usually gets all their opinions for the last term out by the end of June. Usually the most controversial ones come the latest or close to the latest. So my guess is toward the end of the month, but it could be any time from now to the end of June, maybe even a little later.
We look forward to that ruling. I thank you for your leadership and your role as Attorney General. I know that it's a difficult task, but your steady stewardship and understanding of the law is a comfort for us in the state of Tennessee as we watch some of the other states, and they seem to be confused about the relationship between the United States of America and their individual state. But I don't think there's any confusion. I mean, even as I think you said it, you were at the heart of it, Jonathan, that even as frustrated as we were during the Biden administration, we had respect for the law. We had respect for constitutional sovereignty and his ability to exercise his powers in a manner of his choosing, and we maintain that. And it doesn't seem to be that way in other states, but we appreciate your leadership in the state of Tennessee.
Thanks, Matt. Great